The massive alien ship appeared on a quiet Tuesday morning, casting a shadow over the United Nations headquarters in New York that stretched for miles. Its crystalline surface reflected the summer sun, creating rainbow patterns across the city's skyscrapers. Inside the UN's emergency chamber, Ambassador James Miller straightened his tie for the third time in 5 minutes. "They're ready to begin transmission," announced the technical officer, his voice echoing through the packed chamber. The central screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, elegant figure with silvery skin and multifaceted eyes. The being wore what appeared to be a flowing robe made of living light, its colors shifting with each movement. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English, its voice seemingly coming from everywhere at once. "I am High Speaker of the Intergalactic Council, governing body of the civilized galaxy. We have watched your development for centuries, and we have determined that you are now ready for integration." Miller glanced at the other world leaders gathered in the chamber. Russian, Chinese, American, and European representatives all wore similar expressions of cautious interest. The High Speaker continued, "As per Council Directive 7249, we require your immediate and unconditional surrender. Your planetary resources, military assets, and governmental systems will be peacefully absorbed into the Council's administration. Resistance is—" The alien paused, consulting what appeared to be a floating document, historically unprecedented. A moment of silence filled the chamber. Then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Miller laughed. It started as a small chuckle, but quickly grew into a full, hearty laugh that echoed through the chamber. Other delegates joined in, their combined laughter growing louder. The High Speaker's multifaceted eyes blinked in confusion. "I fail to understand the source of amusement. This is a standard integration announcement. We have performed this procedure with 12,947 civilizations." Miller wiped a tear from his eye and stepped forward to the podium. "I apologize for our reaction, High Speaker, but you see, humans have a long history with the word surrender. We're not very good at it." "Not good at surrendering." The High Speaker's voice carried genuine confusion. "The concept is simple. You submit to Council authority, we implement our systems, and your civilization advances under our guidance." "With all due respect," Miller replied, still smiling, "humanity has fought wars over less. We fought wars over bits of land, over old books, even over a bucket once. The entire planet. That's not something we're going to just hand over." The High Speaker's skin shifted from silver to a deeper gray. "You misunderstand. This is not a request. The Council's authority is absolute. We have never encountered a species that rejected integration." "Well," Miller said, straightening his tie one final time, "there's a first time for everything." Over the next 24 hours, every nation on Earth held emergency votes. Despite their differences, despite centuries of conflicts and mistrust, humanity's response was unanimous. The official reply was delivered by Ambassador Miller the following morning. "High Speaker," he addressed the alien figure, "Earth has considered your generous offer of integration. We have drafted a response that I believe captures the sentiment of our entire species." Miller cleared his throat and read from a single sheet of paper. "No. No." The High Speaker's voice cracked slightly, the first sign of emotion they had shown. "No," Miller confirmed. "However, we are open to discussing peaceful diplomatic relations between equals. Earth would be happy to establish trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and—" "Impossible." The High Speaker's form seemed to ripple with agitation. "The Council's authority cannot be questioned. The integration process cannot be denied. This response will be noted as the first sign of human instability and resistance to progress." As the transmission ended abruptly, Miller turned to face the assembled leaders of Earth. "Well," he said with a slight smile, "that could have gone better." Defense Minister Reed leaned forward in his chair. "How long do you think we have before they try to force the issue?" "Not long," Miller replied, his expression growing serious. But they've made a crucial mistake. What's that? They've given us something to unite against. Miller looked around the room at the determined faces of Earth's leaders. For the first time in human history, we're all on the same side. Outside, the alien ship hung in the sky like a promise or a threat. Humanity's greatest test was about to begin, and unlike the 12,947 civilizations before them, they had no intention of making it easy for the Council. 3 days after Earth's refusal, the Council made its first move. Hundreds of ships appeared near Pluto, their silver hulls gleaming against the dark of space. Earth's deep space monitors caught every moment of what happened next. Admiral Kate Thompson stood in front of the main screen at Space Command, her coffee growing cold in her hand. Around her, the control room was dead silent as they watched the feed from the outer system telescopes. "Ma'am," a young officer spoke up, "the Council fleet is powering up their weapons." Kate's grip tightened on her cup. "Record everything. They're about to send us a message." The Council ships fired as one. Beams of light brighter than the sun struck Pluto from all directions. In seconds, the dwarf planet that humans had studied, photographed, and dreamed about for generations simply disappeared. Where Pluto had been, only scattered debris remained, glittering like distant stars. The main communications screen lit up immediately. The high speaker's familiar face appeared, looking somehow smug despite their alien features. "A demonstration," they announced. "The Council's smallest ships, using minimal power. Consider this a warning of what awaits those who resist integration." Kate stepped forward, her military uniform crisp despite the early hour. "You just destroyed a planet to make a point. A minor celestial body," the high speaker corrected. "Hardly a significant loss. Your species hadn't even established colonies there yet." "That's not the point," Kate replied, her voice steady but angry. "That was ours. You destroyed something that belonged to humanity. Everything in this sector belongs to the Council," the high speaker said. "We simply reclaimed it. You have 24 hours to reconsider your position on integration." After the transmission ended, the control room burst into activity. Officers rushed to their stations, reports flew back and forth, and emergency calls went out to every military leader on Earth. Kate made her way to the United Earth Defense Council chamber, where the world's top military minds had gathered. The room was already packed when she arrived. On the main screen, videos of Pluto's destruction played on repeat. "They wanted to scare us," General Martinez said, breaking the tense silence. "Show us how powerful they are." "They succeeded in showing us their power," Kate replied. "But they failed at scaring us." She walked to the center of the room. "In fact, they just made their biggest mistake yet." "How so?" someone asked. Kate smiled grimly. "They showed us exactly what their weapons can do. And more importantly," she pointed to the screen where their sensors showed the Council fleet's energy readings, "they showed us how their technology works." Defense Minister Reed leaned forward. "We've analyzed the data. Their weapons are advanced, but not unbeatable. They use a form of energy we've theorized about but never managed to create. Until now," Kate added, "because now we know it's possible. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's copying what we see." She turned to address the entire room. "I want every scientist, every engineer, every person who's ever dreamed of building a ray gun in their garage working on this. The Council thinks they're dealing with primitives who will bow down before superior technology." Her smile grew wider. "Let's show them how primitive we aren't." Kate walked to the podium and pressed the button for worldwide broadcast. Her face appeared on screens across Earth as she delivered what would become known as the "Come and Take It" speech. "People of Earth, today an alien force destroyed Pluto to demonstrate their power. They expected us to cower, to surrender, to give up." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Instead, we're going to take their warning shot as exactly what it is, a head start on understanding their weapons. They think they're teaching us our place in the galaxy. But humanity's greatest strength has always been learning from our enemies. She looked directly into the camera. To the Council, I say this. You just showed your hand. In poker terms, that's call a tell. And humanity, we're very good at playing games where the stakes are high. The response from Earth was immediate. Research labs lit up across the planet. Hidden projects were brought into the light. And in secret facilities deep underground, humans began preparing their own surprises for the Council's fleet. The Council had wanted to frighten humanity into submission. Instead, they had given humanity a target. The Council launched their attack exactly 1 week after destroying Pluto. Their fleet moved through the solar system like a silver tide, expecting an easy victory. They weren't prepared for what waited in the asteroid belt. First wave approaching Mars orbit, reported Lieutenant Jack Rogers, his eyes fixed on the main screen of the hidden base inside Ceres, the largest asteroid. Around him, men and women worked at their stations, each controlling clusters of what the Council would soon learn to fear. Admiral Thompson stood at the center of the command room, watching the Council ships advance. Are the mining ships in position? Yes, ma'am. All 200 abandoned mining vessels are in place. Kate smiled. The Council had ignored these ships during their approach, dismissing them as primitive human technology, left behind in the panic of their advance. That was their first mistake. Begin Operation Trojan, she ordered. Across the asteroid belt, the seemingly empty mining ships suddenly came to life. Their hulls split open like metal flowers blooming in space, revealing weapons reverse-engineered from the data collected during Pluto's destruction. The Council fleet never saw it coming. Beams of energy, identical to their own weapons but modified with human ingenuity, cut through their ship shields. The Council had never thought to defend against their own technology, turned back against them. First strike successful, Jack announced. 30 Council ships disabled. They're starting to react. The Council fleet broke formation, trying to regroup. That was their second mistake. They'd moved exactly where humanity wanted them. Launch the asteroids, Kate commanded. For 3 years, Earth had been quietly installing engines on hundreds of asteroids, officially as part of a mining program. Now those rocks became weapons, their engines firing in carefully calculated patterns. The Council ships found themselves in a deadly dance of artificial meteors, each one aimed with precision. Council ships attempting to communicate, one of the officers called out. The main screen lit up with the high speaker's face. For the first time, they showed clear emotion, shock. This is impossible, they declared. Your species lacks the technology for these weapons. You're using prohibited Council designs. No, Kate replied calmly. We're using human designs, inspired by your demonstration. You showed us what was possible, and we figured out how to do it ourselves. Humans are good at that. The high speaker's face twisted in anger. You've hidden your true technological level from us. This is a violation of. We didn't hide anything, Kate interrupted. We developed these weapons in the past week. You see, humans work best under pressure. And you? She smiled. You gave us plenty of motivation. Another explosion lit up the screen as a Council ship collided with a redirected asteroid. Council forces are retreating, Jack reported, excitement in his voice. They've lost 40% of their fleet. The high speaker's image flickered. This defeat means nothing. The Council has millions of ships. We will return with a force that will. Will what? Kate asked. Face more of the same. Every day you wait, we learn more. Every ship you lose teaches us more about your technology. And unlike you, we adapt. We improve. We change our tactics. She leaned forward. And here's something else you should know. We've broadcast everything we've learned about your weapons to every human on Earth. Right now, millions of people are working on new ways to fight you. Engineers, scientists, even teenagers in their garages. That's humanity's real strength. We don't give up, and we don't stop learning. The high speaker's image vanished without response. On the main screen, the remaining council ships fled at high speed, leaving their damaged companions behind. "Orders, Admiral," Jack asked. "Recover those disabled council ships," Kate commanded. "I want every piece of their technology studied. And send out the recovery teams. There are probably survivors on those ships." "Survivors? Should we take prisoners?" Kate shook her head. "Not prisoners. Guests. Let's show the Council another thing humans are good at, turning enemies into friends." As the recovery ships moved out, Kate looked at the tactical display, showing the retreating Council fleet. This was just the beginning, she knew. The Council would be back, stronger and more prepared. But so would humanity. And humans, as the Council was learning, were very quick students indeed. The Grand Council chamber was in chaos. For the first time in 10,000 years, the circular hall echoed with shouts and arguments. Representatives from 1,000 worlds struggled to understand how a primitive species had defeated their first invasion fleet. At the center of the storm stood the High Speaker, their silver skin now dull with stress. "Order. I demand order in this chamber." From his seat in the upper tier, Council member Robert Wilson watched quietly. For 30 years, he had kept his human identity secret, working his way up through the Council's ranks. Now he fought to hide a smile as his fellow Council members faced their first real challenge in millennia. "The data makes no sense," announced the Chief Military Advisor, a tall being made of shifting crystals. 7 days. They developed countermeasures to our weapons in 7 days. It should be impossible. "Nothing about these humans follows our models," another council member added. "They should have surrendered after the Pluto demonstration. Every civilization before them did." Robert finally stood, his movement drawing all eyes in the chamber. "Perhaps," he said carefully, "we should consider that our models are wrong." The High Speaker's eyes narrowed. "Explain, Council Member Wilson. For 10,000 years, we've encountered species that think like us. They follow patterns we understand. They react as we expect." Robert walked down to the central platform. "But humans are different. They don't think like us." "That's precisely the problem," the military advisor said. "They're unpredictable, dangerous." "No," Robert replied. "The problem is that we're predictable. We follow the same strategies that have worked for millennia. But humans," he paused, looking around the chamber, "humans thrive on finding new ways to solve problems." He pressed a button, and images appeared in the air around them. Scenes from Earth's history. Look at their past. When they couldn't fly, they built machines to conquer their skies. When those weren't fast enough, they made better ones. When they couldn't reach their moon, they found a way. Every limitation they faced became a challenge to overcome. The High Speaker stepped forward. "You seem to know much about these humans, Council Member Wilson." Robert smiled. "It was time. I should. I am one." The chamber erupted again, this time in shock and disbelief. Security drones appeared, weapons ready. "Stand down," the High Speaker commanded, surprising everyone. They studied Robert carefully. "How long have you been among us?" 30 years, Robert replied calmly. "I was part of a secret program to infiltrate the Council. There are others like me, scattered throughout your civilization, watching, learning." "Impossible," someone shouted. "Our scans would have detected." "Your scans look for what you expect to find," Robert interrupted. "Humans excel at appearing to be what others expect to see. Did anyone ever question why I ate alone? Why I never used the communal sleeping chambers?" The military advisor's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "This is a security breach of unprecedented." "No," the High Speaker said quietly. "This is proof of exactly what he's telling us. While we relied on our technology and our protocols, they simply found ways around them. Ways we never considered because they didn't fit our understanding of how things should work." Robert nodded. "Every time you think you have humans figured out, they'll surprise you. Every weapon you develop, they'll find a way to counter it. Every strategy you devise, they'll find its weakness. Then what do you suggest? The High Speaker asked. Talk to them. Not as superiors demanding submission, but as equals. Because right now, every human on Earth is working to defeat you. They're scientists, they're children, they're artists. Everyone is thinking about new ways to fight. And humans, he smiled broadly now, humans are never more dangerous than when they're united against a common enemy. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered his words. 10,000 years of certainty were crumbling around them, replaced by something they had never felt before: doubt. Robert looked at their confused faces and added one final warning. You destroyed one of their planets as a show of force. Now they're not just fighting to survive, they're fighting for revenge. And if there's one thing humans do better than adapting, it's holding a grudge. The council would have much to discuss in the coming days, and somewhere in the solar system, humanity waited, preparing more surprises for those who thought they could demand their surrender. Defense Minister Thomas Reed stared at the holographic display showing Earth's latest creation. The captured council command ship floated in the massive underground hangar, its silver hull now marked with human modifications. Are you sure this will work? He asked the chief engineer, Mark Peters. Mark patted the tablet in his hands proudly. The council thinks their fusion drives are just engines. They never imagined someone would look at them and think, hey, that would make a great weapon. They watched as technicians swarmed over the ship like ants, installing the modifications that would turn the council's own technology against them. The captured vessel had been a goldmine of information, but it was what humans did with that information that would change everything. Admiral Thompson's report just came in, Thomas said, reading from his screen. The council is gathering their forces for a massive attack. Over 10,000 ships. Mark just smiled. Good. More targets. The next day, humanity launched its first major offensive. The modified council ship, now renamed Trojan Horse, led a fleet of 50 vessels that looked like normal human spacecraft. They appeared to be running from Earth as if evacuating civilians. The council fleet commander took the bait. Enemy vessels detected, reported the tactical officer aboard the lead council ship. Primitive human ships trying to escape the system. Capture them, the council commander ordered. They'll make good examples for the rest of their species. The massive council fleet moved to surround the small group of human ships. That was exactly what humanity had planned for. They're in position, Captain Lisa Brown announced from the bridge of the Trojan Horse. All ships, execute Operation Firecracker. The modified fusion drives on all 50 ships activated simultaneously. But instead of producing thrust, they created something the council had never imagined possible. They turned the very fabric of space around them into a weapon. The explosion was visible from Earth. A new star seemed to appear between Mars and Jupiter, burning for several seconds before fading away. When the light cleared, over half of the council fleet was gone, their ships torn apart by forces they had never thought to defend against. How? The council commander's transmission crackled with static. How did you weaponize our drives? Lisa's voice was calm as she replied. Simple. We looked at your technology and asked ourselves, what else can this do? You see, council ships are perfect machines, doing exactly what they're designed to do. But humans, we take things apart. We experiment. We break things just to see what happens. The remaining council ships began to retreat, but humanity wasn't finished. From behind every large asteroid, from hiding spots throughout the belt, human ships emerged. Each one carried a different modification of council technology, each one representing a new way of turning the council's advantages into weaknesses. You can't do this, the council commander shouted. These are violations of physical laws. Our scientists said these combinations were impossible. That's your problem, Lisa replied. You only try things you think will work. Humans, we try everything, especially the impossible things, because sometimes the impossible turns out to be possible after all. The battle that followed would be remembered as the turning point. Council ships fell to weapons they had never imagined, defeated by the very technology they had thought made them invincible. As the last Council ships fled the solar system, Lisa opened a channel to Earth. Mission accomplished. The Council fleet is retreating. And better yet, we've proven our theories work. In the command center on Earth, Thomas Reed turned to Mark Peters. Send the signal. It's time for Phase 2. Mark nodded and pressed a series of buttons. Across the galaxy, hidden transmitters activated, broadcasting a simple message to every species under Council control. If you want to be free, humanity will teach you how to fight. The Council had ruled through technological superiority. Now humanity would show the galaxy that superiority meant nothing if you weren't willing to imagine new possibilities. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was ready to share everything they had learned about turning the Council's strength into their greatest weakness. 2 months after humanity's message spread across the galaxy, Ambassador James Miller stood before a secret gathering unlike any in galactic history. The large cavern on a distant moon hosted representatives from 20 different species, each of them ready to break free from Council control. "You're saying humans learned to defeat Council technology in just weeks?" asked a tall, blue-skinned being from the Orion sector. "Our scientists have studied their ships for centuries without success." James smiled. "That's because you studied their ships the way the Council taught you to study things. We looked at them differently." He gestured to Dr. Emily Parker, Earth's lead scientist. Emily stepped forward, carrying what looked like a simple metal box. "The Council's greatest weakness is their belief that everything has a single correct purpose. Let me show you what happens when you stop thinking like them." She opened the box and pulled out what appeared to be a Council communication device. "They use these for sending messages across space, but we discovered something interesting when we took one apart." With a few quick adjustments, the device hummed to life. Suddenly, all Council technology in the room stopped working. The aliens gasped. "You turned a communication device into a weapon?" someone asked in awe. "No," Emily corrected. "We turned it into a tool of freedom. The same signal that carries their messages can disrupt their control systems. They never thought to guard against their own technology." The room erupted in excited discussions. Species that had lived under Council rule for thousands of years suddenly saw hope. A reptilian being raised its scaled hand. "But the Council's fleets are vast. Even with these discoveries, how can we fight them?" James pressed a button, showing a hologram of recent battles. "We don't need to match their numbers. We just need to make them afraid to use their own technology. Watch what happened when they tried to attack Earth again." The hologram showed Council ships firing their weapons, only to have the energy beams curve back and strike their own vessels. Another scene showed Council shields failing when hit with modified versions of their own defense systems. "Every weapon they use against us becomes a new tool in our arsenal," James explained. "And now, we're offering to teach all of you how to do the same." "But why?" asked another delegate. "Why help us?" "Because humans understand something the Council forgot long ago," James replied. "True strength doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from helping them stand up for themselves." As if to prove his point, alarms suddenly blared. A Council patrol had discovered their meeting. "Perfect timing," Emily said, surprising everyone with her calm. "Now we can demonstrate in person." The cavern's ceiling retracted, revealing 3 Council warships above. Their weapons powered up, ready to strike. "Watch carefully," Emily told the gathered delegates. She pressed a button on her modified device. The Council ships fired, but instead of destroying the cavern, their energy beams twisted into complex patterns, creating a shield of their own power. Another press of Emily's device, and the ship's engines reversed, pushing them away from the moon. "We didn't just learn to fight their technology," Emily explained as the delegates watched in amazement. "We learned to reprogram it. Every ship they send becomes another opportunity to show them how much they don't understand about their own systems." James addressed the stunned audience. "This is what we're offering you. Not just weapons or defenses, but a new way of thinking. The Council's power comes from making everyone follow their rules. Our strength comes from breaking those rules and finding better ones. One by one, the delegates stood. Species that had been enemies under Council rule now stood together, united by the promise of freedom. "How do we begin?" they asked. James smiled. "First, we teach you to stop seeing Council technology as perfect and untouchable. Then, we show you how humans take things apart and put them back together in ways that make the impossible possible." The revolution that would reshape the galaxy had begun, and it started not with massive fleets or superior weapons, but with humanity's greatest gift to the universe: the ability to look at the rules and ask, what if we did it differently? The Grand Council chamber looked very different now. Where once only council members sat in their rigid hierarchy, representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered as equals. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador James Miller stood beside Admiral Kate Thompson and Robert Wilson, facing the former High Speaker. 6 months, the High Speaker said, their voice heavy with disbelief. In 6 months, humans not only defeated our forces but taught half the galaxy to do the same. "We didn't defeat you," James corrected gently. "We showed everyone, including you, that there was a better way." The evidence of change was everywhere. Council ships now flew with human modifications, their crews a mix of species working together. The rigid protocols that had governed galactic civilization for 10,000 years had been replaced by something new: cooperation. Robert stepped forward, no longer hiding his human nature. For 10,000 years, the Council believed that order came from control, but humans showed the galaxy that true progress comes from freedom. Admiral Thompson activated a hologram showing the latest breakthrough, a new type of ship that combined technology from 12 different species. "Look at what we've achieved in just 6 months of working together. Your scientists said these combinations were impossible. Our scientists asked why not, and found the answers." The High Speaker looked at the designs with new understanding. "We thought humans were primitive because they questioned everything. Now I see that was their greatest strength." James nodded. The Council's way was to tell everyone, this is how things must be done. Humanity's way is to ask, how else could we do this? He looked around the chamber, and now everyone is asking that question. A new figure approached, the first council member who had sided with humanity during the revolution. "The vote is complete," they announced. "All species, including the former council races, have agreed to the new charter of galactic cooperation." The chamber erupted in cheers. Species that had once been bitter enemies now celebrated together. The High Speaker rose from their seat. "Then, as my final act as High Speaker, I surrender all council authority." They turned to James. "Humanity showed us that true leadership isn't about forcing others to follow, but inspiring them to join you." James stepped up to the central platform, the same place where, months ago, the Council had demanded Earth's surrender. Now he stood there to help build something new. "Fellow sentients," he began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Today marks not the end of the Council, but the beginning of something greater. We don't stand here as conquerors, but as partners. Each species brings unique strengths, unique ways of thinking, unique possibilities." He gestured to the hologram of the new ship. "Look at what we've accomplished already. Council technology, enhanced by human creativity, improved by Orion engineering, powered by Centaurian energy systems. This isn't just a ship, it's proof that we're all stronger when we work together." Kate stepped forward. "The defense fleets that once enforced Council rule will now protect freedom. The technology once used to control will now be used to explore, and the species once forced to obey will now help lead." "But what about order?" someone asked. "The Council maintained peace for 10,000 years. "They maintained control," Robert corrected. "Peace without freedom isn't peace. It's just quiet. Real peace comes from understanding each other, from working together, from helping each other grow." James raised his hands. The galaxy faces new challenges every day. No single species has all the answers. But together, asking questions, trying new things, learning from each other, there's nothing we can't achieve. The chamber filled with light as the sun rose over the galactic capital. A new day, literally and figuratively, was dawning. The council thought that demanding surrender showed strength. James concluded. Humanity showed that real strength comes from never surrendering to limitations, to fear, or to the idea that things can't change. As the applause filled the chamber, the High Speaker leaned close to James and whispered, "What happens now?" James smiled. Now we do what humans do best. We look at everything we think we know, and we ask ourselves, what if? The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.